Hey everyone, welcome back to our Lenten Devotionals. I'm Pastor John McCarthy at First Presbyterian Church. So we got an interesting story today. This is our number 6 devotional, and I'm going to be reading from Matthew chapter 18, verses 10 through 14. This is a well-known parable, a parable of the lost sheep. So let's dive right in. See that you do not look down on one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Do you think if a man owns 100 sheep, and one of them wanders away, he will not leave the 99 on the hills and go look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, I tell you the truth, he is happier about the one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should be lost. Now, we've all heard this story, and it's in a couple different places here, and we kind of think we know what's going on. But when you look back at the context, now remember when you're reading Scripture, context. The beginning of 18, there's a discussion going on between the disciples, and Jesus starts using this parable to teach them. And so at the beginning it says, at that time the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a little child and had him stand among them. And he said, "I tell you the truth, unless you change, become like little children, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." And so that ends at verse 4, and verse 10 is where we picked up, and he's talking about the little child, and then goes into the lost sheep. So in that instance, Jesus is trying to teach the disciples humility. Now, I mentioned that this story is also in another place in Scripture. I'm going to jump over to Luke chapter 15. And in Luke 15, there is a series of parables, parable of lost sheep, talking about the same. The one gets lost, he leaves 99. Then the parable of lost coin, this is where he tells that there's a woman who has 10 silver coins, loses one, and then she searches and rejoices when she finds the one. And then right after that is the parable of the lost son. We know that as prodigal son. And in this instance, right before he goes into the parables, the Pharisees are getting very irritated at Jesus, because it says, "Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathered around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, 'This man welcomes sinners and eats with them.'" They're very angry that he's eating with the sinners and tax collectors. And so when we take those three parables in context, he is teaching humility there to the Pharisees. So what I want us to focus on today is the thought of humility. And during this season of Lent, when we humble ourselves before God, is when we get into a right relationship with the Lord. Now we only have about a minute left here. I do want to touch on the parable of the lost sheep, and Jesus is trying to get across to them that there are the lost in the world, that the Father desires to bring the lost back into the fold. And if you look at the numbers when looking through Luke 15, you have one sheep out of 100, so 1%. The shepherd loses 1% of his flock. Parable of the lost coin, the woman loses 1 coin out of 10. She lost 10% of her savings, and she rejoices when she gets it back. Parable of the lost son, he had 2 sons, and he lost a son. How much more would he rejoice when that son is restored to him? He was dead, now he's alive. And he's trying to get the Pharisees to see that these people that they're grumbling about are the ones who are dead, and they need to be made alive. So it's about humility. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I hope these devotions continue to bless you during this Lenten season, and I'll see you all next time.